Good morning. It's Glenda with aka GK Fralin. I just wanted to come in and introduce this section. I am continuing with the bipolar series, or my journey with bipolar series, because I was not upset by what I did yesterday at all. It wasn't that uncomfortable, and I just feel, rather than just do this sporadic thing, I'm going to get it done. Now today's I didn't get all of it in. I was talking to the camera quite some time yesterday, and I got a lot of material, but I did not get all of the. I couldn't get it all in on one day, so. If you see the same outfit tomorrow, you'll know why. Anyway, you'll start seeing things, or things will start coming together. But try to imagine if it were you going through these things, or maybe you know someone. The reality I was going through at the time may not have been real to a lot of other people, but it was very real to me. And this is the thing to understand. The reality is very real, at least at that time, to the person going through it. Okay, here we go. Anyway, I did go in the hospital, and at that time I was with an HMO. Because I worked for the HMO, and you had to work for the HMO, this particular one, or anyway, I can't remember exactly how it worked, but HMOs were, at that time, I don't know how they are now, but they were notorious for only giving you a very limited amount of time for whatever specific thing you were in the hospital for. Mine was a maximum of, I think, 7 or 8 inpatient days per year, and I think maybe 10 days of what they called aftercare. Very limited. And back then, when it came to mental health, insurance companies did not recognize it as a medical condition, and so they only paid like 50 or 60% of the cost. So I got a little expensive. Anyway, my husband was trying to hold things together financially when I wasn't able to work, and it turned out I did try to go back. I was trying to keep up. At that point, I was doing medical transcription for this HMO, because I pretty well knew my medical terminology, and I'm a pretty good speller. But anyway, or at least if I misspell, I know how to look it up. My problem is punctuation. My editor goes nuts. But here we go. So I was in there for a few days, and they put me on a couple of medications, and they sent me home. Because the psychiatrist couldn't do much more, but then I was supposed to do, like a week of aftercare, which I did. Here's what was the problem, though. The medication I was on was new, and it had a tendency to make you a little sedated. Now, a lot of people take that medication and do drive, but I wouldn't be stopped. But I didn't feel like I was safe behind the wheel. For one thing, I was starting to have a lot of anxiety attacks. I had never experienced anything like that before. And anyway, so we went through this dance. So I was in the hospital for that week, and with the new medications, I wasn't real sure about driving. So I called this person, someone gave me the name of this gal that drove to Lincoln every day, and she was in a carpool. And they were willing to take money, for gas. And so, but what happened? One of the women in the carpool, who had been in the pool for a long time, somebody she knew told her about a situation where somebody she knew or they knew had someone in the car who was bipolar. And when they got to where they were supposed to drop them off, they had an anxiety attack and would not leave the car. And this person ended up having a lot of trouble over it. I don't know exactly what happened, but this was the woman who I had talked to. She called me back and she said, "I'm so sorry, but she is not going to change her mind." And I asked, "Can I talk to her?" And she said, "It won't do any good. She will not talk to you." So, okay, that was, people, that's the stigma we live with. So, I was driving. And most of the time I was doing okay. Now, I did the 1 week, but what I was doing was I was kind of, working with my meds, I guess. But I was also suffering from stress anorexia at the time, which I often did when I was younger. I just could not eat if I felt under stress. So I got down to about 103, 105, somewhere in there. And I looked pretty gaunt. Anyway, they were trying to coach me how to eat a little bit more. And, instead of eating one, eat two or whatever. When the kids were in school and Joe was at work, I just was home alone. I didn't want to eat. But anyway, when I was in the hospital, I guess I felt safer. And when I felt safer, not that I wasn't safe at home, but I didn't have this big world that I was dealing with, or felt like it wasn't this huge space of people who could see me that knew was wrong. Because I knew everybody could see inside my brain and know how I was thinking. Well, over the next year, and I believe this was during 1996, I was in and out of the hospital. I eventually did lose my insurance with the HMO because I couldn't work enough hours to even earn it. And eventually they kept asking me, "When you come back, when you come back?" And I certainly wasn't able to handle it at the times. And my doctor would say, "I just don't know." I said, "Well, they're not going to take that as an answer anymore." And so the next time they called me, I said, "Well, you're just going to have to let me go and give somebody else the job." So anyway, that was the end of working, at least for a good long time. Or at least I thought I would never be able to do a job again. And actually I haven't. But over the next year I was in and out of the hospital numerous times because I was going in and out of these, you don't come out of a journey or out of something like that, because what happened was everything from my childhood on started packing up inside my brain and it was like I was reliving it. I mean, I honestly felt that I was reliving every rejection and every slight and every thought of a rejection from the time I was just little. And the whys kept coming back in. Why me? Why me, God? Because I really had a deep faith. Still do. But it was the why me's. Why? And like I said, I just wanted to protect my daughter from my children from me. I wasn't harming them, but I just felt like I don't want them to see this. I don't want them to go through this. But when I went back on my husband's insurance, I hadn't really lost it, but
the HMO where I worked for, I'm the older one in the family, and so they considered me primary. So the HMO was the primary insurance. So then when it came to, after I didn't have HMO anymore, it was a little, the insurance my husband had through his job that covered the family was more lenient. They still didn't pay more than 50 to 60%, and that was for anything. And it was really starting to get into the pocketbook. So I changed psychiatrists simply because I went into a state facility for about 2 to 3 months. They simply couldn't keep me in the hospital anymore because I'd been in there the limit of the possible allowed days that the insurance did give then. So I was in the state hospital, and for some reason I did much better there. It was so much more structured. And I was there for about 2 months. I was a voluntary, but I was there for about 2 months. And when I finally came out, we had already sold the acreage. We were moving. We moved back to Beatrice, where we rented a small house. The acreage sold quickly, because around here acreages are prime. It seems like around big cities, major cities like LA and that, the more you get out in the suburbs, the less things cost. Well, not around here. Well, it depends on, it depends on the property, of course, but acreage, 5-acre acreage like that, with a nice house on it and that big, beautiful yard, and the pens and the outbuildings, it was worth pretty much. And we didn't ask the value, we asked a lower because we just needed to sell it. But we got enough out of it that we were able to pay off everything that we owed, including the house that we in Wymore. So once I got out of there, we decided, yes, we did need to move back to Wymore, because the renters we'd had the second renters we'd had tore it up even worse than the first renters we'd had. There was no way to rent it again. It had to be completely redone. So we moved in I believe it was a January, but anyway, we moved back in, and my dad came up, my mom came up. We did a lot of painting. We had to remove the carpet and replace it in the kitchen. Other rooms we had to deep clean them several times. The back porch, the flooring had to be replaced, and the walls, we papered the walls because they had dogs that they just had left on the back porch until they found a clause in the lease. They could say that the house had been abandoned, and there was actually maggots in the refrigerator they left behind. So it's pretty sick. And thank goodness, they got rid of that refrigerator first thing. So I didn't get that.
That's it for today. I'm quickly going to say, I love you. I do care about you, or I wouldn't be doing this. I'll see you tomorrow because it's another day. Thank you very much.